to this week's edition of Inside Australia. Tonight, we take you inside the life of a high school student currently attending school in Sydney's western suburbs. Over the past 3 months, our team Inside Australia has been documenting the everyday life of a 9th grade boy as he navigates his way through adolescence and high school. We will be focusing on the challenges these students face in and outside of the classroom, and meet the team of educators who are faced with the task of assisting and managing these students in order to make sure they can stay in school and receive the best education they possibly can. Meet Tim. Tim is 14 years old and is currently in the 9th grade at Luxford Road High in Mount Druitt. Outside of school, Tim lives with his mum and 2 older siblings. His mum is the main provider for his family, working multiple jobs. While Tim's oldest brother has finished school last year and is currently unemployed, and his sister is in the 12th grade, but she is unsure of what she wants to do once she completes school. Tim is a very complex student with many facets to his personality and well-being outside of school that impacts heavily on his ability to succeed at school and acquire a well-rounded education.
In a large scope, there are 3 main issues that negatively impacting on Tim's ability to perform at school. The first is Tim's behavior issues, which come as a result of his oppositional defiance disorder. The second is his health and the way in which Tim suffered from severe asthma. And the third is Tim's living situation, that being in a low socioeconomic area.
With all these complex issues intertwined with one another, it's our job to do our best to create a holistic approach that intervenes on these issues on a student, classroom and whole school level.
Let's now go inside the classrooms of Luxford Road High and find out how these teachers will improve Tim's educational experience. Oppositional defiance disorder, also known as ODD, is a persistent behavioural pattern which consists of angry, irritable, and argumentative moods. It also refers to a defined behaviour towards authority figures, which can lead to educational impairment. Its symptoms include being unusually angry or irritable, frequently losing their temper, being easily annoyed, and arguing constantly with authority figures. ODD is one of the most common childhood and teenager behaviour disorders. About 10% of all children will develop ODD, with the condition occurring slightly more commonly in boys than girls. ODD continues to be the predominant juvenile disorder seen in mental health and community clinics, and it is of great concern because it is highly predictive of later delinquency, criminality, and substance abuse in adolescence and adulthood. As mentioned earlier, Tim lives in a low socio-economic area of Sydney's west, in government housing with his 2 older siblings and his mother. Tim's mum is unfortunately extremely time poor as she balances 2 jobs to try and put food on the table for her children. With Tim's father having left the family just after Tim was born and his mum rarely at home due to work, this leaves Tim with the absence of a parental figure at home to monitor his well-being, diet, hygiene and schoolwork. In addition to Tim's behaviour issues and detrimental living circumstances, Tim also suffers from severe asthma, which limits his day-to-day activities. Asthma, as defined by the National Asthma Council of Australia, is a disease in which a person's airway becomes inflamed, narrow, and produces extra mucus, which makes it difficult to breathe. Asthma can be identified easily in a person as it exhibits certain symptoms. The symptoms of asthma include coughing, difficulty in breathing, chest tightness, shortness of breath, and wheezing. Asthma can be triggered by exercise, pollen, bugs in the home, chemical fumes, cold air, fungus, dust, smoke, odours, pollution, and also anger, stress, and pets. According to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, 1 in 9 Australians suffer from asthma. As stated by the Australian Institute of Health and Wellness, asthma is associated with poor quality of life, and asthma mortality rates are higher for people living in remote or lower socio-economic areas. Tim's asthma impacts on his schooling in several ways, one of these being increased absenteeism, which results in Tim suffering from lower grades. Tim's asthma also causes him to struggle psychologically, socially, and with fitting into the educational framework he's been placed in. Research also suggests that Tim's schooling could be impacted by his asthma due to the way in which he suffers from a chronic illness, and this could increase stress levels. As mentioned previously, Tim is a very complex student. He has behaviour issues caused by his oppositional defiance disorder. He lives in detrimental living circumstances, and he suffers from severe health issues due to his asthma. This overall affects his well-being, self-esteem, and social skills, and this then has an on-flow effect, which affects his ability to be engaged, concentrate, and learn at school. The first step of intervention for Tim's ODD is to identify contextual events that may trigger this challenge in behaviour. This can include transitions, unstructured settings, or denied access.
Hello? Hi.
I don't have to talk to you.
Yes, you're right. You don't have to talk to me. I know. Yeah, my office is a little bit messy. I kind of like that, you know? Tim, I'm really sorry that I embarrassed you in class. I didn't know that I may upset you.
Didn't mean to hurt you.
Okay. So, Tim, can you tell me what happened before I asked you to solve the equation?
I didn't know how to solve the equation. So I was asking Lisa, and she said she can help me, but she ignored me and pretended not to speak to me. So I continued asking her, and then you called me.
You said you didn't honor the equation, right? But it's the same as we did last week, remember?
No, it's not. It's not. This time you saw the equation y instead of x, and I only know how to deal with the x one, the x equation that we did. Stupid.
I see. So, Tim, you said you asked Lisa for help, right? Tell me more about it.
Well, I used to sit beside Maria, and she always helped me, but Lisa's just mean to me. She didn't answer my question, she just ignored me, so what am I meant to do?
Thanks, Tim. I get more ideas. Tim, so next time when you get confused in the class, can you send me a signal? So I want to make sure that we're not getting into a situation anymore. Is that okay?
And I suppose like I could do something like grab my nose or something.
Yeah, that's perfect. You can just grab your nose, and if I see you grab your nose, I will know that maybe you get confused. So you can work on you can also only practice questions like on the books, and then I can come to you after class. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good, miss. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Throughout the interview, the teacher filled in checklists which detailed those behaviours and their antecedents. These should be kept as specific as possible, such as difficulty sitting next to Lisa during maths. Daily report cards and behavioural contracts have also long been used to manage disruptive behaviours. The DRC is an operationalised list of a child's target behaviours, and it includes a specific criteria for meeting each behavioural goal. Teachers provide immediate feedback to the child regarding target behaviours on the DRC. However, a criticism on the DRC is that all the individual interventions are time-consuming for teachers. When intervening on Tim's asthma issues on a student-based level, in the opinion of the Australian Asthma Handbook, Tim must use the following strategies to manage his disease better. He must try and stay away from the trigger as much as possible. He must be more aware of the symptoms and take some necessary precautions during an episode of asthma. He must get to know the proper use of his inhalers and carry around a written action plan for the people around him to assist him in case of an emergency. Most importantly, he must adhere to the medicines and medical review provided by his doctors.
Tim's teachers have reported that more often than not, Tim comes to school with no equipment, no food for the day, he'll have dirty uniform, and he just looks extremely tired, malnourished, and just unwell. Tim's living circumstances have a major impact on his ability to focus at school, his well-being, and overall motivation to learn. In the case of Tim, it is imperative that we do what we can to support him through his education in order to break this repeated outcome of poor education and limited life opportunities for students from low socioeconomic areas.
When we begin to address Tim's personal living circumstances and the ways in which we can improve Tim's situation, we refer to Brofenbenner's ecological systems theory. At the heart of the theory is the student themselves. Unfortunately, in the case of Tim, he can himself not change any of the living circumstances that he has been placed into. However, when we take a step backwards and examine Tim's microsystem, which consists of his family, friends, teachers, and the school community, there are many effective strategies we can put into place to help encourage Tim to have a self-motivation for learning and a level of self-worth.
When in the classroom, Tim's teachers have adapted several strategies from current research in order to engage him with the content. The first strategy that is used is simply using clear language to set clear rules and expectations for the class. Students such as Tim often have low self-esteem and model the behavior of those close to him, such as his brother and sister, who also do not have a positive attitude towards learning. This has an on-flow effect in which Tim has low self-esteem in himself, and unless intervened, he'll fail to see the value in education. The second strategy that Tim's teachers use is called variance. Variance allows students to have choice in the way they learn and the way they are assessed. This strategy allows Tim's personal circumstances to be taken into account, therefore making assessments and learning an achievable task. The third strategy Tim teachers use is called scaffolded learning. Developed by psychologist Lee Vygotsky, this form of learning works well for many students, not just students from a low SES background. Scaffolded learning brings a step-by-step approach to teaching to ensure students build on what they bring to higher education and content is better understood. The teacher focuses on what the specific learner could achieve with assistance. Examples of this include word banks before reading a difficult text, providing a simplified version of content that will become later more increasingly difficult, or viewing an exemplar or model. When intervening on Tim's ODD on a classroom level, like before, the teacher should instill clear classroom rules and expectations. The teacher should first define positive social skills with regards to being safe, respectful, and responsible. The teacher should then identify what each expectation looks like within classroom routine. However, rules alone are unlikely to provide sufficient incentive for promoting appropriate behaviours in classroom settings. And according to Green, most of those students know the rules very well, but their lagging skills are the main reason for misconduct. Another form of intervention is called a group contingency. This is an interdependent group contingency which provides a reinforcer to the entire class based on overall group functioning. A dependent group contingency provides a group with a consequence if a single student or small group of students meets a goal. For instance, the entire class might earn extra free time if there are no reports of Tim getting angry that day. Group contingencies are a potential way to rapidly modify the peer ecology in the classroom, that negative behaviours no longer elicit positive peer attention. However, the most common criticism of group contingencies was the perceived lack of fairness. When in the classroom, teachers could use the following strategies to help Tim with his asthma. Teachers could consult with their school nurse or principal for updated policy and procedures for managing students with asthma. Teachers must know their role. They have to follow the action plan of the student or direct the student to get help accordingly. They have to develop a clear procedure with the student and his or her parents or guardians for handling schoolwork missed, or if the student has episodes of the illness and misses school. Furthermore, the teachers have to alert school administrators, nurses, and parents or guardians if changes in a student's performance occur that might reflect trouble with the student suffering from asthma. They should also encourage the student with asthma to participate fully in physical activities. As a whole school, staff and administrators have recently taken on suggestions based off research conducted by Victoria University in order to help students such as Tim who live in low socioeconomic areas. The school now has new specific staff roles that deal specifically with assisting students living in difficult communities. These include specialists such as community liaison officers who communicate with the parents, and community resources such as community kitchens and local libraries. By enabling constant communication with parents, the school hopes to find a way to assist Miss Reynolds' working situation that would allow her to be at home more for her children and also keep her updated with how Tim is progressing through school. As mentioned before, the Community Liaison Officer also communicates with resources in the local community, such as the local library, who can offer extra study resources for Tim after school, and community kitchens and charities that help make sure Tim has the simple things such as clean clothes and a meal for dinner each night.
So we're responsive for the needs of the students with asthma, and by developing procedures and guidelines, the asthma management procedures that we have in place ensure that staff know how to help students with asthma. So a good management program for asthma should contain a confidential list of the students that have asthma. It should include all school policies, so just in reference to any school that the student may belong to, and that should include the procedures for administering medications and including the protocols for emergencies responses to severe asthma attacks. Written plan for every student with asthma, so it should be individualised, and education for staff and the students about asthma. Based on the asthma guidelines, a resource for managing asthma in Victorian schools, individual asthma risk minimisation plans can be developed for students diagnosed with asthma, but it must be developed with the consultation of parents in mind.
When dealing with Tim's ODD on a whole school level, the school will need to populate the frameworks with the appropriate interventions within each tier of the school's framework, and also ensure that the whole organisation has signed up to employ the same behaviour management strategies to help those students, such as Tim. For example, schools can have mental health consultants who've worked with teachers to help them implement behaviour modification strategies that are best practice for supporting youth with ODD. One of the stumbling blocks for effectively implementing multi-tiered frameworks is the difficulty of getting all school personnel on the same page and motivated to implement the new interventions. So once the school-wide behavioural framework is established, it will require ongoing fidelity and integrity in its monitoring. It is through the use and implementation of all these holistic strategies that the school aims to improve Tim's educational experience on a student, classroom and whole school level. Thank you for joining us. We'll keep you updated.
I could be a gentleman, I could be